Hello everyone, my name is Bill. I'm going to show you today how to create this Earth image in Blender using the Circles Render engine. It's based on an old tutorial that I got from William Chamberlain. It was distributed as a PDF using Blender 2.49 as the engine, and since that's so far out of date, I thought I would try to recreate it or even do better than that with Blender's 2.62 and Cycles. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get going. The first thing that we're going to do is flip to front view, make it orthographic, and add our first sphere. We'll use 64 segments, 32 rings, and we'll scale it up to 5. Go ahead and set it to smooth, and name it Earth. Now, the diffuse maps that we're going to be using to texture this planet are using, I think, what's called an equirectangular projection. And historically, it's been pretty difficult to map a rectangle onto a sphere, mostly because of these triangles that are right up here at the top. So what we're going to be using here is a method to make these triangles as tiny as possible, and then we'll use the follow active quad unwrap method so that these triangles aren't even selected when we do our unwrap, and then we'll close up the hole afterwards. We do that by adding in a ring here to kind of replace the existing ring. We'll take the existing ring and select it, then we select the middle vertex. We change this to active element, scale it down. And we're scaling, since we selected the pivot point as the active element, we're actually scaling towards this middle point. And you'll see the reason for that here in a bit. We'll do the same thing on the bottom. And I clicked a little too quickly there. Alright, select the inner ring, shift select the middle point, and we scale on down. Just like that. Okay, now go ahead and flip back to front view. We're going to switch to face select mode. Select this face right there. A twice to grab the whole thing, but this is still the active quad. Go ahead and hit U and oops, I almost forgot a step. We actually first have to mark a seam to get it nice and even. Now you know that if you hit 3, you get the right side view. If you hit Control 3, you get a left hand side view, and this is exactly what I want. I want to select this edge loop right here. You can see that it doesn't go all the way around the sphere, and I'm going to mark this as my seam. Okay. Go ahead and select everything again, go back to front, and U, unwrap, follow active quads. Okay. Now when we scale out and we look at this image here, you can see we've got a nice rectangle. What we're going to do here is load up a smaller version of the textures we'll be using. We'll use our Earth map. You can see it's just way down here at this tiny little spot, so we're going to need to scale down our vertices here. Select everything. I'm going to select the 2D cursor as my pivot point, scale the heck down. Okay, we're pretty much in the neighborhood right now, but there's a couple things we need to look out for. I'm going to go ahead and set this to texture, and you'll see that here, South America is looking a little wonky. This is the tailing edge of South America right here, which means that our unwrap is 90 degrees wrong. So we're going to go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees, grab it and bring it back in. And as I scroll it around, you can kind of see here in the preview up at the top that that looks pretty much correct. Although it is, of course, currently incorrectly scaled. So I'm going to come and I'm going to constrain this to the image bounds. And I'm going to grab it, drag that there, hard left, lower left hand corner where the cursor is. And now I'm going to first scale along Y until it doesn't scale anymore. And I'm going to scale along X until it doesn't scale anymore. And now we're all nice and wrapped. Actually, I don't even need this window anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. But you'll notice we have a tiny little hole right up here at the top. So I'm going to get to where I can see the whole thing. I'll go to Alt right click, Shift middle click. Now I'm going to do an Alt M for merge at the last, since the pole vertex was the last one that I selected. There we go. That one's nice and closed up. And we'll do the same thing down here. Alt right click to select the edge or the ring there. Shift right click to select the pole. Alt M. And merge at last. And now we've got a nice wrapped sphere. Okay, now go back to solid view here. Go back to 1, and I'm going to go ahead and add a subsurf modifier. Later, I'm going to be using a displace modifier to add our details in for the continents and the clouds and things along those lines, and I need enough mesh to work with since I'm using a subsurf. That's why I'm using such a high number of subdivisions here. Let's go ahead and proceed to the next step. We're going to duplicate our sphere, and we're going to set its scale to 1.002 on all 3 axes, and we're going to name this one clouds. We'll duplicate that again. Name it atmosphere. 1.009, 1.009, 1.009. And there we have it. We have all 3 spheres that we're going to use. But now to kind of make them act as one, we're going to go ahead and add in an empty. Since our original sphere size was 5, I'm going to set this one to 6. I'm going to set it to be a sphere type. And I'm going to select my atmosphere, shift select clouds, shift select earth, and now I'm going to drag them onto the empty to parent them. I'm going to rename my empty to be planet control. Now pretty much anywhere I move or rotate this, the spheres will follow. We're going to go ahead and set the planet's tilt while we're here. We'll do that on the y-axis. We'll make it a minus 23.44 degrees, just like the real one. And let's get to cycles and get it configured. Go ahead and make this an HD image. Make sure it's at 100%. And here under integrator, we'll need 192 samples on the renderer, and we'll set the transparent on the film. That'll give us the alpha channel that we need to work with a little later. Now we're going to go ahead and worry about our textures. So this is cycles. We're going to go ahead and create a new texture. I'm going to split this off. So that I can have a node editor. Okay. You know what? Before we get to that, I'm going to go ahead and add in a sun as well and a camera before we get too much further. Let me move this sun off to here. We'll rotate 90 on the minus, and we'll add a camera. Control Shift 0. Nope. Control Alt 0. That's the one I wanted. I'm going to grab the camera along its local Z and just kind of back it out until it's right about there. Now I'm going to go ahead and split the area one more time like this. I want to go to top view and make this one down here rendered, and grab my sun, rotate around the 3D cursor, and rotate that guy until we have it not fully illuminated, but with a slight amount of shadow there on the right hand side. And we're also going to set the sun's size to 0.25 and its strength to 5. Now we can see that shadow area a little better. The reason we made our size 0.25 is because in relationship to the Earth, the sun is very small because of its distance away from the Earth. So we set our size small to get some fairly realistic shadows. I'm going to go ahead and rotate that just a little bit more, about like that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get that texture taken care of. Go to Earth, new material, we'll call this Earth, and we're going to go ahead and add an image texture. Join it up right there. We're going to go ahead and use my 8K images. It's a nice big image, lets you get really close to the Earth if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and hide the atmosphere and the cloud layers for now so that you can see the results as we go here. Okay, now if the sun were really shining here, you would see a lot of specularity from the water, but not the Earth, the land masses. So we're going to have to add some specularity in. We're going to go ahead and add a glossy. I'm going to make it just a little bit yellow. I've got these hex values noted down for myself. You can see it's just a little bit yellow. And I'm going to add a mix shader. Let's pop it right in there. And you can see, well, we have some specularity, but it's wrong. So, well, the reason it's wrong is because, first of all, it's not limited to just the oceans, it's also affecting the land masses, but it's also far too strong. So we're going to set the 0.05 on that, and we're going to set our rough here to 0.175, and that's going to make our sun a little less nasty, but it's still affecting the landmass here, so we're going to fix that. I'm going to go ahead and add in another mix shader and drop that in right there. We're going to add a transparent shader. Add that in right there. And now we're going to add in another image texture. This time we're going to use our ocean mask. And we're going to supply that as the factor. If we were to come in and look really close here, you'll notice that now the specularity isn't affecting the landmass, only the ocean. If we were to flip these around, though, you would see it's only affecting the landmass and not the ocean. So we'll keep those as they are. Okay, now that we've got specularity handled, we're going to go ahead and add our first displacement. Hit new on texture. You can see that by default it gets a cloud, and it's pretty strong. But we're going to go ahead and hit this show texture button. We're going to set this to image or movie. We're going to open, and we're going to get our topographical bump map. There's a couple of things wrong with it. First of all, it's too aggressive. Second of all, it's got the wrong mapping. So we're going to set our texture coordinates to UV, and then we're going to drop our strength. But, you know, if you were going for a kind of a comical look, this would be fun. In fact, let's make it even stronger. Woo. Okay. We're going to actually make this only about 0.0525. Nice and small. But it'll make a difference in the long run. So, alright. Now we're going to go to texturing the cloud sphere. We'll make that guy visible again. Add a new texture. Now we're going to actually set this to be a mix. Our top shader is going to be a diffuse. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That's actually going to be a transparent. And our bottom shader is going to be the diffuse. Now, I'm going to add an image texture. Use our cloud map. Instead of just applying the map directly, we use that as a factor. And there we go. We have clouds. Now, our texture here is literally just a black and white image, and Blender's using the black as the points where it's supposed to be transparent, white in the places that it's supposed to be diffuse. We could flip these, and you'll see that it's now acting the other way around, which is just way too much. So we leave it there. And if we zoom in here, you'll be able to see some fun stuff. Like, you'll notice shadows are actually being generated by our clouds. And we're going to go ahead and leave that as it is, but we're going to add a displacement modifier to this as well. As we did before, we hit a new texture button, image or movie, and actually we're going to use the same image, the same cloud map here, so that it's not only affecting which parts are transparent, which parts are diffuse, but it's also going to tell us how big our strength is going to be. Again, we don't need very much because it's such a huge map. Okay, now we need to go ahead and texture our atmosphere. This one's going to be the simplest of the bunch. We're going to use a mix. We're going to set our top shader to be a translucent. And we're going to make that kind of blue, a nice light blue. And we'll set our bottom shader. And you'll notice that as I do these, it's automatically adding the nodes for you. So you can do this either way. You can do it over here, you can do it over here. It's entirely up to you. And we'll set this to be 7. Now you may have noticed when I first opened up our Earth map texture that the oceans were pretty dark. And the reason being, later this translucent shader is going to be informing the color of the oceans. It's because it's a light blue, it's actually brightening the entire image. So now, with all of that ready to go, we're going to go ahead, and honestly that's all we need to do for our Earth. If you wanted to, you could position it however you wanted to. If you're in Europe, you might want to make Europe and Africa the primary view here. If you were trying to perfectly replicate the Apollo 17 image, you could bring Africa into view and rotate along the x-axis to make it look exactly. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that there. And we just need to go ahead and do a render. What you'll notice is missing is it doesn't have the atmospheric glow. It's missing a few little things to make this perfect. So we're going to do that in post with the compositor. For now, let's go ahead and let this render. Okay, we have rendered. Now, as we take a close look at this, things are looking pretty good, except you'll notice we've got some weird banding happening here. And the reason for that is, here in clouds, I forgot to set my displacement to UV. And that will fix that. Okay, now I have to render again. Here we go. We are done rendering again, and when we look at it this time, we don't see any of that funky banding. So we're good to go. Now, we have to open up the compositor to finish this up. I'm going to go ahead and close these two windows, and we will switch over to our node editor. To the composite, we're going to use our nodes. We're going to have a backdrop, and we're going to add a viewer right off the bat. The first thing that we notice is that this edge right here is a very hard edge between the atmosphere and open space. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of soften this edge. We're going to do that by blurring our entire Earth, and then we're going to take a copy of our unblurred Earth and lay it over the top of the blurred Earth, and then what we'll have is a nice edge that we're going to work with a bit. So let's start by adding in a blur node. We're going to make it Gaussian. We're going to set both the X and the Y to 5 pixels each and drop it into place. And you see we already have the blur. So we have a nice edge between Earth and space, but now all of Earth is blurred. So we're going to add in an alpha over node. And pull that in right in here. First thing we're going to do is put we're going to put this guy here. We'll put our unblurred Earth over the top of our blurred Earth. Hit Control Shift here. Control Shift left click on the alpha over node to connect our viewer directly to it. We can also Control Shift left click on the blur node, and it will give us that. It's just a nice little shortcut. Now if we zoom in, we can notice here that we've got a little bit of our blur, but it's not very good because you can still mostly see the hard edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to blur this edge here by using the alpha node out of here. So we're going to add another blur. We're going to drop our alpha into it, and what you'll see here is our perfect Earth, but you're seeing it from an alpha mask kind of point of view. And we're going to blur this one also by 5. We're going to set it also to Gaussian, and now we're going to use our blurred alpha as the factor for the alpha over, and lo and behold, we have a nice soft fall off. Now what we need to do is get our glowing atmosphere effect, and to do that we're going to take this image and we're going to apply a Kirsch filter to it. And to do that, we'll just add filter, prop it up right in here. We'll set this to Kirsch, and we get some nastiness. So what you'll notice is right here on the edges, it's nice and bright, nice and glowy. So, but we're going to need to knock out all of this middle stuff. We're going to add another alpha over node. Here. Well, actually, there. And we're going to make this top node black. And we're going to grab our alpha here and use it as the factor. The way around. Yep, other way around. Okay. So we bring in our blur as the factor node. We take the Kirsch, and all we have now is this lovely ring around the edge. Okay, we'll go ahead and pull this composite way out here. Okay, now since this is going to be our glowing atmosphere, we need to blur the heck out of this. We're going to do that by using another blur filter. Drop it right here. And we're going to blur this massively. We need to use the Gaussian type blur. Okay, that's pretty good, but it is not very bright, so we're going to go ahead and brighten it up. We're actually going to connect it to itself on this mix node, and we'll set it to screen as our mix type so that it's only affecting the highlights of the image. Okay, that's good. We're actually going to bring it way up though. We're going to go ahead and set it to 3, and there we go. It's looking pretty good, but it's not very blue, so we're going to go ahead and add an HSV here, hue saturation value, and we're going to tweak our hue a little towards the blue side, and we're going to tweak its saturation up just a bit, and we're going to go ahead and brighten it just a little bit more. Alright, there we go. Now you'll note that we've got this nice blur going for our overall image, but we've lost that nice hard edge. And what's going to happen is it's not going to look very good on our planet because our reference planet had this nice hard, bright edge to the edge of the planet. So we're going to go ahead and add in that. We're going to add this to this and use them both. So we're going to go ahead and add another blur node, because we can't just add this directly back in. We're going to add another blur node. I'm just not going to make it quite as extreme. Of course, we use Gaussian. I'm going to set its X and Y to 10. We're going to bring this down to here. We're going to go ahead and add, we'll duplicate this, bring it down here, except we're going to bump our saturation all the way up. We're not going to need quite as much value on that either. And come on, we'll connect them up. Okay, if I were to look just at this node, what you'll see is we've got this edge. Now we're going to screen the two of these together. So let's add that together like that, and when it composites, we've got this nice thing. Now we just need to screen or knock out this over blur here. Oh, we're actually going to knock out the over blur, and we're going to add the entire thing onto our original Earth. So to add this onto the Earth first, we're going to go ahead and add a screen. I'll set it in its bottom node, and we're going to take our Earth and let it composite. And now let's take this and knock out the over blur. I'm going to do that with an alpha over. We'll take the screen, we'll add that there. Make this black, and we will use our alpha from here again as our factor. We'll use Control Shift to left click to set the viewer to right here, and there we go. We have our atmosphere, we have our glowing effect, we have our nice fall off. Now, all we really need to do is do some final color correction. We're going to add a couple of nodes to help with that. First, we'll add a color balance node. And we'll add a hue correct node because it's not quite blue enough for my tastes. So we'll first adjust our hue correct, and then we'll do our color balance. I know they're a little backwards, but that's okay. Pull up these blues right around in there, and I'm going to pull up these blues right about to there. And you can see that we've got some kind of a nice purpley hue there, and our overall image is just much more blue. We can see the difference between here and here. We'll go here. You can see this one is blue, and this is more of a light color, whereas by the time we get here, it's much more blue overall, and we have a nice purpley kind of glowing atmosphere. Now, we need to go ahead and fix these. Now I've got notes here for what I'd like these to be set at. Here, we're going to make the lift. The lift is the lower shadowy parts of an image, and we're going to drop that down, make those just a little darker, a little bit more pronounced. We're going to set that at 9.925 on all three values. Now, the gamma is the midtones, and we're going to bring those up a little bit. And then we're going to take our highlights and kind of peg them out just a bit. Now, you could actually leave it as it is, but you have the original Apollo 17 image was blown out a little bit, especially here in the clouds. Now, we don't want to quite take it that far. I mean, we could if we were to take this all the way up to, say, 1.2-ish, like right in there. Get a very close match to what the original Apollo 17 image is. But as a photographer, I don't like blown highlights, so I'd rather have it right about there. And there we have it. Now if I drag this composite over to here, bring it to there, let it composite on our original copy, not just here in the compositor, you'll see we have a nice, beautiful image ready to save out and use in our cool sci-fi movie or whatever your heart desires. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you listening to me, for learning a little bit, and I hope this makes your blendering more pleasurable. Enjoy.